Welcome, everybody, to the Fusion Power Podcast. I'm your host, Jared Gillespie, CSO here at Fusion Power. Today, I'm very excited to have a very good friend of mine and coworker, Mr. Bill Stark. Bill has been with Fusion for the last, about 4 years now?
Over 4.
Yeah.
Almost 5 now.
So, Bill, and you've been doing sales for about 40 years, right? When you go back to your childhood?
Yep. 40 years, 41 years, yep.
Bill has done quite a few different things. I know that you've told me in the past that you were, even as a teenager, supporting yourself out there doing sales, right?
Since
Hustling.
I was 14, yes, sir. Well, I started working when I was 6, but yeah, I was out on my own at 14.
Pretty incredible. Bill, you served in the military. I know that you made a career in financial services.
Yes, sir. 24 years.
Now you've been selling solar for the last
14
years. I had 10 on my sheet here. I didn't realize it was 14. I know that you've sold over 1,000 customers at this point.
1,150, I think.
Unbelievable. That's a lot of families to help here. And then, like we just said, you've been here for over 4 years. You finished top 5 every year here at Fusion Power. Yes, you've won our Family First Award, and you run all of our closer trainings every Friday morning.
Every Friday morning, yes, sir.
We sure love having you part of the Fusion family.
Thank you. I love being here.
Bill, let me ask you a warm-up question here. What would you say industry-wide right now, what is the hardest thing about selling solar?
I would say the hardest thing in the field selling solar is the misconceptions that have been planted out there by Google, by bad reps, just bad experience, and the gossip channel that it starts with one person, very close to factual. By the time it gets to your customer, 10 levels deep, it's way far away from
It's that
factual.
bad game of telephone, right?
Exactly.
I was talking to somebody yesterday about, there's so much misinformation that is spread, even by reps not knowing it.
Correct.
Right? Because they were trained by somebody who was trained by somebody. It might be 3 or 4 generations deep from a sales level, and all 4 of those generations may not even know that what they're telling the customers completely
inaccurate. And as you know,
inaccurate.
that's my biggest pet peeve in solar is just not knowing your craft.
Yep. Which is why we do the trainings, right? This is why we have you come in and train every single week to make sure that we're doing it the right way. Okay, question number 2 here as we get started. For you personally, what's your favorite thing about selling solar? Because you've done a lot of sales.
I have done a lot of sales.
What has kept you in obviously besides, the financial side of it, what do you love about selling solar?
My favorite thing about solar, and it's just ironic that I ended up in solar, because when I got out on my own, my biggest issue was with the electric company when I started very early in life having to pay bills. And the fact that I thought it was unfair. So fast forward 40 some odd years, the fact that I can now give people a choice of freedom versus, I call it slavery, to be able to control their own climate and be comfortable in their own castle by setting them free from the corruption and the communism of the electric companies.
It's the American dream. We're giving them freedom, right?
That's right. That's what I love. That's
it.
what I fought for, and now I'm fighting for it again.
I love it. Cool. Well, today, for everybody listening in, we appreciate your ears. We're going to be talking about qualifying questions today. Okay. Qualifying questions. This is, a process through a series of questions. We're able to make someone go from point A to point B in a sales process. Qualifying questions are probably one of the most powerful ways to move that sale along.
Absolutely.
How would you define a qualifying question?
A qualifying question, I would define a qualifying question that a question has 2 sides. And the qualifying question has to be able to deliver information from both people, the one you're asking the question to and the one trying to investigate and find the answers to. So your questions have to be geared to where they are willing to open up and tell you what's on their brain so that you can dissect what their images of what you're there for is, and then also answer questions you need to be able to educate them correctly to bring them to that level of understanding that whether they're right or wrong, they have to get to point B in order to move forward.
And why are those kind of questions so powerful? You talked about opening them up and getting them from point A to point B. How are those questions so powerful?
They're so powerful because if they're asked correctly and you allow the customer, your potential customer, to express their views and their feelings, you can actually involve them in the process and show them that this is a decision they're making educated wise, and they're doing something good for their family for the future, not just for some fancy little slogan.
So how do you formulate a good qualifying question?
Well, the first way to formulate a good qualifying question is, I always tell everybody I'm in touch with, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. You should be doing twice as much listening as you do talking. So just listen as you walk in the door, listen to what they've said, pay attention to your surroundings so that when you're asking them a question that you need an answer for your goals, you can take their life experiences, their education level, even the gossip that they've heard, and be able to turn that into the next question so that you can bring them along and show them what you're trying to do.
What happens when a rep talks more than they listen, or what happens when a rep doesn't ask those questions?
Well, that answer is a tricky answer because it's actually twofold. First off, if they talk more than they listen, they're driving the car in the direction they want, and they're leaving the customer at the bus stop. The second thing is, if they don't ask questions that involve the customer, they're just dictating what they think that customer needs without finding out what their lifestyle is, what their desires are, or anything like that. So they're leaving the customer behind, and then they're shocked at the end that the customer's not with them.
The thing that's so cool about those questions is they're essentially telling you, here's how I need to be sold, right? When you ask them a certain question, and you ask them, what have you done for energy efficiency in the house? Oh, we've done all sorts of things. We got new windows. We did the sunscreens. We did extra insulation. They're telling you that they're very energy conscious.
That's right.
That tells you exactly where I need to go with this sale
That's
here,
exactly right?
But if you're not asking those questions and you're just taking them down your own road, you might be completely missing the mark there.
Correct. And since their idea of what you're there for and your idea of what you're there for are two different paths, and if you don't get those questions to where your paths intersect, you're selling to yourself and you're walking out with nothing.
A lot of times we talk about when you ask effective questions, it's almost like you're cheating in poker. Do you know what I mean when we talk about that?
Yes, sir.
What am I saying there?
I love this part because in poker, the whole object is for not letting the other person know what you have, and you play the game that way. In our business, if you ask effective questions, you are actually getting to see their whole hand, see their whole experience level, and be able to formulate your whole guidance, your whole pathway that you're doing based on their information in their hand. It's like you're holding both hands in yours and picking out the best cards.
Perfect. You have a very specific way of setting up your sale, right? Yes, You've got a worksheet that we're going to talk about here in a second. And you use that to lead your customer down a very specific path.
That is
right?
Correct.
It's a discovery process together, and you're asking them a series of questions and helping them to kind of discover what's important to them, what's not important to them, which is then giving you the direction of how you're going to end up taking that sale. Tell me how you first how did you come up with this worksheet or this worksheet or this series of questioning?
How I came up with this actually started in the financial industry, and I just copied a lot of it over. Because like a doctor in the financial industry, in order to get them on their path to where they want to go, you have to find out where they are, what they have, what they can use, what they're willing to use. And so I learned in that industry to ask a lot of questions, and it self-taught me a lot of ways that I don't have to be somebody that's selling or closing. All I have to be is a tour guide and make sure that their bus is on the right lane to the right destination. So when I came to solar, I found that people are very much infected with information that a lot of times is wrong. And they have prejudged ideas on what solar can do, can't do, will do, the experience they're going to have. So I found by asking questions and involving them and showing them that this is something you already know, let me just break it free for you, that they then are more receptive to what I have to offer, and I can just be that tour guide.
It's funny, when I tell people what I do for a living, a lot of people say, "Oh, I could never be a salesperson, right? I could never sell." And it's like, you don't have to be a good salesperson. All you have to be good at is asking the right questions, and they'll tell you whatever it is they want. And then all it is a matter of, how do I get my product to fill your need?
That's right.
And if you help them see that, I didn't have to sell you. You saw it yourself. I can get it to you for this price. So how's that sound? Right? You ask for the sale, and that's about all you have to do. But it's, that might be oversimplifying a little bit. But that's the power of those questions, though, is that it really takes away this sneaky, slick salesman that people think they have to be, and it's just not the case.
I am so in touch with you with that. I've taught for decades now that if you have to sell by overcoming objections, if you have to sell by closing, then you're doing an injustice to them and you're just causing stress in your career. If you bring them along with a path where they don't want to leave you because you educated them and taught them how they can fix something in their life, then you have a customer for life and you get referrals, and sales becomes more of an experience instead of a job.
And that line of questioning typically is identify a problem, help them identify a problem, offer the solution, transition and build value in that, and then do it again and again and again. And you just keep showing that over and over. This is the beautiful pattern there. As you go through your worksheet, what's your goal with your customer at the start of that presentation?
At the start of my worksheet that I use, my goal is really to open their eyes that in this process, in this experience that we're going to go through, this little journey we're going to go through, there's a lot more than kilowatts, panels, and price. It's not about just throwing panels on your roof and hoping for the best. There's a strategy, a plan that if you know all the ingredients, you can bake your own loaf of bread and be able to, which is energy efficiencies with solar, with mindset, with understanding how the electric companies operate, so that you can use their knowledge and their experience and their tactics against them and come out on the winning side. Because I always tell people, the electric companies have been doing this longer than we have. If you don't have a strategy, they're going to win.
Yep. And it is. You talk a lot about how do we come up with the strategy, right? That's a financial term. It's like we got to have our tax strategy. We got to have our insurance strategy, our sales, our investment. And that's how it is people, when they feel like they've got a plan, this is something I want to get behind.
That's right.
Right. If we talk about solar as a plan and as a way to live and win, then it's not just, am I buying a product? It's like, am I subscribing to a new way of doing things? And then it's a lot harder for them to dismiss it.
That's right. And Jared, you hit the nail on the head, that they are actually invested in the plan. They are part of the plan. And then it's not just selling a product. It's no longer a product. It's a lifestyle. Because as you know, you've heard me say thousands of times in the years that we've known each other, this is your castle. You've worked so hard to own your piece of the greatest country in the world. You should be comfortable in your own castle. You shouldn't have somebody dictating your own life. And that's the freedom that once they get that, once that door opens up and they understand all the pieces they already have in their possession, all I'm doing is helping putting those pieces together, then they're all in and they're with you for a long time.
Love it. Love it. So let's, if we can, I want to role play this.
Sure.
I want to have our listeners, specifically our newer reps and even reps that have been doing this for a long time. There's a lot to learn in this process. As I've seen you do this before, I remember when we were filming a training video for this and I watched you do this for the first time, I was like, just scratching I'm like, this is absolutely brilliant. I love the methodology here. So if you would, I'd like us just to role play. I'll be your customer. And I just kind of want the listeners to be able to see this, again, this initial line of questioning. And as you guys listen to this, kind of figure out what is it that Bill's doing. Look at this goal, see the questions that he's asking me, and see how effective this is to getting us to a certain point in the sale before he even goes into talking about dollars and cents and even savings, if he even brings up savings anyway. Listen to this line of questioning and see how well it gets me into this track before any sort of a decision has to be made. That sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. I'll let you lead then.
All right. Well, Jared, first and foremost, thank you for allowing me in your home. I know there's 14 trillion solar guys out there, but what I do is I want to show you a way that I've done this. I do it different probably than everybody else out there. I'm going to do it by hand. I'm going to break this down for you and show you why the electric companies are so anti-solar and why you taking control of your family can really put you in a good financial position. Fair enough?
Yeah.
The first thing we got to do is we got to understand the electric companies have a strategy. And if you want to win a game and you're just out there running around like a wild man, how far along in the game are you going to progress?
Not too far.
Not very far, right? So you have to have a strategy. You have to have a plan. Well, the plan is simply this, is to be able to take you from where you're at and be able to find out what you want out of this, what experience you want to live. And I'm going to show you all these pieces that come together for you. Okay, the first couple questions are simply this. I need to know, how long have you lived in Arizona?
12 years.
12 years.
This
okay.
time, yeah.
So you've lived here long enough to know that we only have one in a partial season in the state,
Yeah.
right? It's hot and not so hot, but we're headed into that miserable season called
It's coming
summer.
again. Yeah.
Okay. So in the middle of summer, our hot months are July and August. Those are always our worst months. If you had your druthers and electricity was free, I know that's a pipe dream, but if electricity was free and you're in your home during the daytime, in the hottest part of our summer, what temperature would you like the house to have the house at?
I would go with like 72.
About 72.
My wife would let us go down to probably 74, but yeah.
But unfortunately, because electricity isn't free in the middle of the summer, typically during the daytime, what temperature do you set the thermostat at?
We're typically closer between 78, and then when we leave, we'll bump it up to like 80, 81.
80, 81.
Yeah.
And you do that, I'm assuming, just to save money.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what you're telling me so far is that the electric company is controlling your lifestyle during the middle of the summer because you don't want those crazy high $600, $700, $800 bills. Is that correct?
For sure, yeah.
Perfect. Okay. A couple other questions is, other than the COVID situation, because that was really weird, but does anybody stay home all day or does everybody go off to work or school?
I work, so my wife is here with the kids, and
Okay.
she's running errands and stuff like that. But I'd
other
say
than
that
that,
she's a
she's here.
stay-at-home mom. So
Okay.
yeah,
So
yeah.
middle of the afternoon, kids running around. If it gets too hot in here, people can get irritated and can get real.
Oh, they'll turn it down all the time. Yeah.
Okay. So have you done anything since you've owned the home? Have you done anything to improve the energy efficiency, like adding insulation, windows, sealing the ductwork?
We haven't done a lot of that. When we did the pool, it came with the variable speed.
Okay.
And we did one of the options we selected when we built was the radiant barrier.
Okay.
And from what I understand, that helps.
That does help.
A little bit, but we have not invested a whole lot into any energy efficient stuff.
Okay. One of my favorite things to do is not just produce electricity with solar, but to show people how just a simple tweak on your home can make a massive difference in your usage. And it's called sealing the ductwork, AeroSeal. The EPA has put out a report for now over 33 years in a row that you're losing as much as 28% of your cold air you're paying for through leaky ducts before it even makes it into the house. What does that mean? That means you're paying for 100%, but you're only getting about 72% into the house. That's worse than taxes. Yeah. So what I try to teach people is if we seal those ducts up and we get 94, 95% of that cold air coming into the house, then what that does is three main things. Number one, obviously, it cools the house down faster.
Sure.
That just kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
The second thing it does, it keeps the house cool longer, so your AC isn't constantly having to replace cold air. Can you imagine how much energy you would save if your AC isn't turning on every 5 to 10 minutes?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the second thing is more of a cleanliness thing, but all that air you're losing, it's sucking in the dust and the asbestos and all the garbage from the desert and blowing it throughout the house. You know, and that's you're breathing that, you're always having to clean that up, and that it kind of really almost eliminates that. So it's one of my favorite things to do is attack the electric company by sealing up those ducts, creating anywhere from 13 to 20% energy efficiency rating using less energy, and then producing the rest with solar. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. The other thing I do is I try to teach people on other little tricks that can help. You told me that you're all electric here.
Yes.
Your water heater's an electric water heater.
Yeah.
Those coils, that's 9,600 watts of electricity that turns on every 7 to 17 minutes. If you put a timer on it during the middle of the day when you're not needing super hot water, that's kind of like 96 100 light bulbs turning on every 10 minutes, and you're freaking out. Where's the light switch?
Luckily, in the summer, I don't think it turns on a whole lot. It seems like it just comes out boiling already because it's so hot out there.
But it does turn on often because you have it set at 140, 150 degrees, and it's designed to turn on if that drops below 3 degrees you're setting.
Gotcha.
So it's a good thing to do to save some energy there. And now your windows, I see they're double pane.
They should be.
Okay, are they original to the house?
Yeah, we haven't done anything.
Perfect. So my strategy is going to be able to show you that if we take energy efficiency, sealing the ductwork, adding a little bit of insulation, and producing the rest with solar, you're not dependent on the electric company, and they don't have to dictate what your life is in the summer. that sound like a plan you would like to look into?
Yes, as long as I can afford it. Yes.
Perfect. So if it was the same money or less, but you're in control instead of them, that would be what you're hoping to accomplish today?
Yeah, that would make sense.
Perfect. And that's what we're going to go over today.
Perfect. All right, and scene. So it's set up perfect, right? I mean, that question at the end, there's your pre-close already. It's like, if this makes sense for you and it's going to cost you the same or less than what you're already paying, and it allows you to live the way that you want to live, is there any reason that you could see not moving forward on that? I mean, it's like, at this point, I can't tell you no.
That's right. And I asked that question before I even flip the page and get to the numbers. I've probably asked that question no less than 4. I make sure of that, but probably around 7 times, so that they know that, hey, because one thing I've learned over the 14 years.
And I want to hear, do that question one more time, because this is not a question that you're just coming off at the top of your head. It was very intentional, the way that you said that question. Can you say that one more time?
And I say it in different versions, so I don't repeat the same exact words every time. But like on that one, if I show you a way that you can attack the electric company from both ends of the sticks, make your home more energy efficiency, and produce your own electricity so you're not so dependent on them, and they're not dictating your life, and I can make this all happen for the same money or less than you're already spending, that would be something you would like to at least investigate and find out about, wouldn't it?
Right. And you're also saying that would be, wouldn't it? And now it's like, well, yes, of course it is, right? And so now I've even given you a soft yes.
That's correct.
So while this is technically a qualifying question, it's also a closing question at the same time. And if I balk at that and I say, well, we'll see, right? We'll look at it. I mean, yes, but you're still kind of gauging, where am I at this? And now you know, it's like, okay, the first time I asked this question, he's still giving me some resistance. I got a little bit of work to do with this guy. I got to ask him some more questions and really help him understand what the situation he's in is not optimal. He just doesn't know yet. I got to help him recognize that.
Exactly. And what salespeople tend to make the mistake of, if he balks at that question, they're in auto program mode, then they continue moving down their direction of path, and they get to the numbers too quick. What I do is, when I find a passive answer like that, or a resistance answer like that, I'm going to belay that. And now the customer's not going to know, but I'm going to take us on a little detour so I can dig out the details. Why are you balking? Is it something you heard? Is it something you're afraid of? Are you the type of person that just automatically says no to everybody that walks in your door the first time? I need to find out all that information so that I can open them up again and lay them out to where they can self-inspect and then get back to where I need to go, so that the little yeses are simply hey, how do I get started?
What are some of the other qualifying questions that you use further down the presentation? Let's say you're actually getting into solar and you're talking about offset, right? It's like, let's say we're in APS, and so we're trying to eliminate their bill altogether. We need to do a big offset. What might be some of the questions that you'd ask to help drive me to making the decision of yes?
Okay. Well, the first couple questions I would ask in an APS situation is, how long have you been tired of not just paying high electric bills in APS, but they seem to keep going up even though you're trying to conserve energy? How long has that cycle been going on for your life?
It happens every year.
Every year, right? Now, if there was a way that I can show you that you can produce enough energy that you will never get anything from APS, so all of those rate increases, anything they dictate in life doesn't apply to you. You're in your own little island. If there was a way I can show you how to do that and be able to produce enough electricity to set you free from them, would that be something that would make you happy and help you secure your future for your family?
That would be awesome.
Outstanding. And the way we do that is, APS used to allow people to create their own electricity and do a kilowatt for kilowatt. It was called net metering. They caught on to how many people were going solar, and they said, oh, we can't afford that. So they have put in places a downscale of an exchange rate now. Well, right now, the exchange rate still is favorable to the homeowner. So the way we do that is, you are selling to them your excess energy that you need to pre-sell for your nighttime. Because guess what you can't produce at night? Electricity. The sun's not out there. So you need to pre-sell that electricity to them so you can get it back. The exchange rate's about 0.5 penny in their favor. So in order to offset that, we just create a little bit more than you use, so that exchange rate washes itself out, and then you never get an electric bill from them again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
And I'm going to break all that down for you when we go over your numbers, but that's really how it works. You just create your own electricity by installing your own electric company, and you get to be the boss.
Awesome.
Make sense?
Yep, makes sense. Cool. So that's another great example. How about a qualifying question? Let's say that you're not even the sales presentation, we're creating a lead, right? Okay. Maybe we got a referral from somebody, or maybe we're knocking a door, maybe we're calling some data that we bought if we're a rep that likes to buy data. What might be a qualifying question that you would ask on an initial meeting or an initial conversation before you know that you have, a 30-minute opportunity to talk to them?
Well, probably one of the things I'd like to bring up quickly is, have they seen what's going on in the electric industry and how the rates have been going up, and they've been getting these rate increases consistently every year, sometimes multiple times a year, and the rates are going up pretty dramatically nowadays. Have you seen those notices? Have you seen the news that they've approved a rate increase this year for APS?
Yeah, well, I got something in the mail a couple weeks ago that said that they were asking the corporation commissioner, whoever it is that approves it, that they're trying to go up another, I don't know
almost
what it was.
$400 million. Yeah. And that means it's going to be somewhere around 4 to 7% just for you. And they're doing that across all of their customers. Well, what I want to do is get the opportunity to show you a way to make sure that you're exempt from that in the future. And if I show you soon enough and it makes sense to you, we can even get you exempt from the very one that's coming up in the next couple months. Would that be something you'd at least like to look at?
Yeah, for sure.
Outstanding. What I'd love to do is stop by. I need about 45 minutes of your time for you and the missus. Would evenings or days be better for you?
You'll need to catch me after work, yeah.
Perfect.
Yep. Good. Excellent. Okay, let's do one or two more. How about the gas analogy, right? We talk about locking in our prices of gas as if we could go back 2 years ago and lock in at $2.87 a gallon. I mean, gosh, we're back up above $4 a gallon today.
Yep.
I'm like, when did this happen again?
$4.19.
Gosh.
It's crazy.
But it's like, if we could go back to that $2.49 or whatever it was at a couple years ago, if you could lock in at that rate for the next 20 years, and just the only requirement that you had to buy your gas from Chevron, is that a deal that you take?
Absolutely.
And why would you do that?
Well, because one, obviously, right now that would be worth way more money than I ever paid for it 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But second off, just the fact that I know my cost, it's totally predictable. I know my cost. No matter what the world happens, it can catch on fire if it wants to. But I know my cost for gasoline. And then don't forget, there's still that date in the future that I get free gas for the rest of my life. That's just an amazing place of control to be.
Exactly. And then we apply that. That's exactly what we're proposing for your home. We're going to lock in your rate that will never go up. It's going to stay the same as long as you're in the home.
That's right.
And so as everything else keeps going up, at least one of your bills is going to be guaranteed. Wouldn't that be a cool thing, right? So that's another awesome one of those kind of qualifying questions with an example that can really illustrate and have a customer get on board with you there.
Yes, sir.
Any others that you'd bring up
as examples?
The
gas one is probably the most effective one nowadays, but for many years, the mortgage one. If you were buying a house and mortgage A was an escalating cost that never ended, but mortgage B was fixed and ended at a certain date, which mortgage would you sign up for?
The one that ends, for sure. Yeah.
Well, why wouldn't you do that with your electric bill?
You can't do that with APS, right? Can't do that with SRP.
And I'm going to show you how you can do that today.
It's awesome. Yep, those are great. So again, listeners, as you guys and gals are selling to your customers and as you're presenting, take that mindset of I have to sell and convince and persuade. Yes, you need to do that to a certain extent, but take a step back and think, how can I do this a little bit more naturally, right? If you're trying to sell one of your friends on something, you're going to ask a lot of questions and you're going to help them just see the same thing that you see just by asking those kind of qualifying questions. And so hopefully some of the things that you guys have heard today, and as you've listened to Bill go through the intro to his presentation, you can see how that sets up the rest of the presentation to go so smoothly for that customer. Now they are on the same team trying to identify and come up with this strategy together on how to make this customer be able to use more power at a cheaper rate, be able to lock in that rate for a long time, to be able to save a whole bunch of money, and be able to improve their overall lifestyle. And this is not a you against me situation now, right?
That's
We're
right.
all on the same team.
Very quickly, it can become we're all planning and strategizing together. And you just, that's why I call them my solar family. You just kind of become a family. And you help them learn that, hey, this isn't the big bad wolf. This is the actually friendly person that I need to help save me from the big bad wolf. Yes, sir.
Words of wisdom. Go back and listen to this again. Go back and listen to Bill's line of question again for a great training. Do it on your way out to your next presentation and try this. We appreciate everybody's ears today. Thank you for listening and joining us on the Fusion Power Podcast. Bill, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see you guys next time.
Take care.